Big Jersey. Thanks for tuning in to the Urban Scope podcast. I have an album review. Redman just released Muddy Waters 2 on Christmas Eve. Now, I have to admit, I've never listened to a full Redman album before. So this is my first time listening to a full project from Redman, especially by himself, a solo effort. And this is his first one in 9 years since 2015. He's done other projects since then, but this is his first solo project since then, and this is the second installment of his classic album, Muddy Waters. So, like, listen to this album. Like I said, I wanted to see what the Redman sounded like. I heard a lot of songs with Redman with Method Man, but this is my first time listening to him solo. Now, the album did have a lot of, or it didn't have a lot, but it had some features with Method Man on it. I can always listen to a Method Man and Redman song. Like, they have that chemistry together that works very well. And like I said, they work with each other for decades on either movies and TV shows and things like that. Even recently, they were on the Stars as Power show, the Ghost 2 show or whatever. So, like I said, they have that chemistry, but I will go back and listen to more of his solo albums, especially the Muddy Waters 1. I haven't heard that whole album. I heard songs off of it, but I'll go back and listen to all the projects. And this album had a lot of components from a 90s album. It had a lot of skits on it. It had a lot of funny parts. It had a lot of productions that sounded from the 90s. He used the producer Rockweiler and he used Eric Sermon. So some of classic productions. A lot of these sounds sounded like they pulled these songs from the 90s and just brung them back out. But he just recorded these albums, I think, in the last couple of years. But it was a lot of nostalgia on this album, and I love this album for it. Just going through some of the songs and the rapping that was on this album. Like I said, I always talk about the marriage in hip hop between the production and the lyrics, and this had a good mix of that marriage between the production and the mix. Now, Redman did produce. He was credited as a producer on most of these songs, which I didn't know he produced. He produced a lot of these songs, and then, like I said, Rockweiler and Eric Sermon were on a lot of these songs as well. So, but he talked about a lot of stuff on this album, his things, smoking and things like that. But he talked a lot about the nostalgia of the 90s. And like I said, this album made me miss the 90s. I always talk about how the 90s was a major era of my time and one of the best eras that I've ever experienced. Now, being not even 40 yet, I've been through 5 different decades, and the 90s was a big time that I remember. Even though I was young, I wasn't a teenager yet, but I still remember those times more than I even do in my 20s. The 90s was a good era, not only just for TV and film and music, but economy was better. A lot of things were better in the 90s, and it was a lot of pivotal times, and things were a lot simpler in the 90s compared to now. So, but just getting off my soapbox here, my favorite song on the album is Jersey, and it's a sample. It was an Eric Sermon produced song, and it had a sample on it, but the chorus was just electric, and his rapping is still intact from the 90s and early 2000s, and he didn't miss a beat. It's amazing how these artists can evolve over time and still keep the same love for the sport and be able to still rap and still be able to have the hunger for this stuff. Because like I said, now artists get their first deal and they put out an album and it's never the same anymore. Redman has been able to stand the test of time, and Method Man as well. The verses that I heard from him were sounded like Wu-Tang, Method Man. It was pretty good to hear that. And then that leads me to my second favorite song on the album was La La La, which was featuring Method Man, and their back and forth is legendary. Being from the South, I don't know, it's kind of weird that I like the East Coast music that much. I always talk about Nas and Biggie and Jay-Z and rappers like that, even the Fat Joe. Just listening to those projects make you feel like you're from New York, make you feel like you're from New Jersey. And that's what that Jersey song on this Muddy Waters 2 album did for me. Made me feel like I've been to Jersey before, and it gives you that electric feeling inside to make you connect to the music more. And that's what this album did. And like I said, that La 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 song with Method Man was very good. Um, Even Shaq had an appearance on this album, and he's Break City too. He's from Jersey City as well, so they had that connection. And Shaq, he didn't sound the same as he did before in the prior years, but it's been a while since he's rapped and or put anything out. At least he's probably still rapping, but it's under the radar. But nevertheless, he did pretty good on the album as well. But like I said, the skits on this album, skits is a thing from hip hop that's been missing, and Redman brought that back with this album. Just talking junk on the songs, and just being able to create these skits. And it was a pretty long album because of the skits. It's 30 plus songs, which most people nowadays don't have the attention span to listen to an album that long. But without the skits, it's probably in the teens. It's quite a few skits on this album, but nevertheless, I love the album. I would recommend the album for anyone to listen to who are hip hop fans. It's a lot of hip hop elements on here, and he had a song, uh, the song called "Don't You Miss," and this is an Eric Sermon produced song as well. And he talked about a lot of references like Rap City, The Basement. He talked about 106 and Park, Dr. Dre and Ed Lover, a lot of hip hop components that he said he missed that isn't prevalent anymore that he missed. And there was a lot of, like I said, there was a lot of going back to the past on this album and a lot of nostalgia. And I like this album for it. And it was a surprise release for me. I didn't expect him to drop an album, but looking on Apple Music, I seen the album and I said, let me check this out. And I'm glad I did. Big Jersey in the building. And, I feel like this album will be one of the greatest, one of the top hip hop albums, like true hip hop albums of 2024, despite it only coming out a week before the end of the year. So it'll probably be bunched in with 2025. But nevertheless, it's a great album. Go check it out. And then thank you for listening to this review, and continue to support and like the videos. And until next time, I'll see you next time.